What's up? Peace. Like my video, share my video, subscribe to my channel. Go to my website, enigma.com. Purchase one of my book bundle packages. You get $30 you get 12 ebooks, or you can purchase the individual books. Yeah, I'm making this video today to discuss some of everything, I should say, but I mainly want to talk about black culture and how a black economist who was famous in the 1970s and 80s, Thomas Sowell, he talked about how black culture is really hillbilly culture, white hillbilly culture. And we all know white hillbilly culture is a derivative of the European peasants who came here from Europe during the Great Migration of the early 1900s, late 1800s. Also the so-called pilgrims who were sent here on the Mayflower, the King James and King Charles, to be slaves and serfs and servants in the 13 colonies. And also the remnants of the people who were in Louisiana, King Louis of France. The Algonquin Indians had so-called New France, which is also known as Louisiana. And a lot of the hillbillies are from like the South also. Before the United States, you had New France. So Thomas Sowell say black culture is really a derivative of white hillbilly culture. And I think it's absolutely true. We have a propensity of adopting foreign cultures and replacing those foreign cultures, replacing our cultures with foreign cultures and foreign ideologies. Even the gangster rappers, the gangsters were European immigrants also. Al Capone, Frank Nitti, Moran in Chicago, New York. These gangsters are Italian, Irish, Jewish, Europeans, Russian mafias, the Mexican mafias. Now we gangsters. We want to be Italian gangsters. We want to be John Gotti, Al Capone, Scarface, Al Capone. We following a Cuban movie played by a Sicilian Al Pacino, Scarface. Drug dealing, gang banging, shooting down these drive-by shootings. Drive-by shootings, allegedly the first drive-by shootings happened when the black soldiers came home from World War I, and Caucasians would drive by, shoot them down when they still had their uniforms on. Then it was made famous in Chicago with the street sweepers. The Caucasian European mafias of the north and the south side was shooting each other down, drive-by shooting each other down, fighting over bootleg territory, burlesque house territory. So yeah, modern black culture seems to be a mutant culture that adopts and embraces like foreign ideologies. Even Christianity was implanted from the Catholic Church, then the British Church of Northern Europe, the Holy Roman Empire, the Eastern Orthodox churches, Greek Orthodox churches, Catholic churches, you know, the white Jesus, paying money to the Pope for indulgences to release your families who are held in purgatory by the Pope. Those cultures are also foreign ideologies. So what exactly is our original culture? What is black people's culture? And how do we actually figure out and decipher what is our original nature and separate the foreign ideologies? The only way to do this is using mathematics. deductive reasoning, subtraction, addition, multiplication, algebra, polynomials, trigonometry, calculus. These mathematical principles can help us isolate ideologies, influences, separate those ideologies, identify those ideologies, and see how much of those ideologies are effective. Social, not only can you apply mathematics to engineering, mechanical engineering, chemical engineering, you could also apply mathematics to social engineering. They had a method in the ancient world. I'm gonna focus on Plato because it's well documented. The Socratic method, using deductive reasoning and bouncing ideas off of different people, can decipher the truth out of any idea. Can be broken down to its simplest form by just simply discussing the idea in dialogue. Nowadays, they want you to do a case study and get scholars to spend billions of dollars to try to figure out if a principle is true or not. 30-year study. And then when you have that 30-year study, we can still say that that's still an idea, or the results can still be skewed towards a particular corporation who might benefit from the results of the study. So it's not necessarily true. It's still, it could be politicized, and it could be an intrinsic bias, and plus you don't really know the intentions of the people who perform the study. When we apply mathematics to any principle, idea, we have the power to instantaneously get to the truth of the thing. And this is why I mentioned Thomas Sowell, because he seemed to have the ability to simplify the most complex of ideas and break it down to its simplest form. This is what it is because of such and such, using deductive reasoning, using mathematics, or just using logic, common sense. And they say your studies cannot be proven because there's no research to back it up. But why do you need research to back up something if you discovered it? It's like a computer. When a computer processes data, it processes program data that you program. It doesn't care if you have research to back up the data that it's processing. It's trying to get to the results. If it don't get to the results, the computer frees up. So the computer don't care about the research you did. All it cares about is the code. Is the code good code, and can you process the code? And you want to process the code as fast as possible to get the program up and running, because the whole idea is to get your program up and running and to get your program to function seamlessly. So the computer processor processes the code using mathematics. That's how it processes the code. It translates your program into I's and O's, input output code, binary code, and then the computer interprets binary code to get you the images that you're seeing right now, the sound, everything. Input output, light and darkness, on and off, billions of times a second, gigahertz. That's how you get this video looking at you right now. But we do the same thing. We can do the same thing with these ideas, with any idea, and determine how much of that idea is affecting you using mathematics. For an example, X equals this equals X. Let's say this particular aspect of the culture equals X before the white man came, and this is the culture after the white man came, which is BX. So we know B represents the white man culture, X represents our culture, which is combined. How do we separate what is pre-white man and what is post-white man culture influence? You look at the end results, but you first have to know what was here, or what you can do is you can identify all aspects of what the white people brought and reduce and eliminate that and see what is left over, or what is present here that's not present in Europe. And we could eliminate what the Europeans brought that's not in Europe, or what they brought that is in Europe, and keep what's here that's not in Europe. And we know the locomotive, electricity, all technology of modern culture, light bulbs, most of this stuff comes from the United States, and primarily comes from black people. So we could assume or induce that, or deduce that modern technology is black culture. Modern music is black culture. Blues, jazz, rock and roll, hip hop, all of that. Because it's not present anywhere else. It's only present here. And the only way it's present anywhere else is because it was exported from us. So this is the place of origin. They call it a root cause analysis, another scientific principle. A root cause analysis. But what I want to talk about before I end this video, the one culture that seemed to have been homegrown post antebellum South slavery, post Civil War, was the culture that was grown in the South by way of Elijah Muhammad, and in Detroit it was the Nation of Islam culture. It was the culture that the black man is God. That was the culture that seemed to be prevalent in America. But I think that comes from an ancient idea that was resurfaced, that was reintroduced, because they say Farad Muhammad came to America to find the lost sheep, to find the lost tribe of Shabazz, to introduce them to their own culture that was lost for them. And the parallel between the culture in America that the black man was God, 5%ers, the lost foundation of Islam, the Pope is considered the vicegerent, the God on earth. In Islam, they say you're supposed to have a vicegerent, a vice, what does it call it? A viceroy that represents God on earth. Even in the Bible, the first man and woman was considered made in the image of God. And then you look at what Socrates said about Atlantis. And Atlantis, in the early days when the Caucasians or whoever it was that discovered America, allegedly discovered America, Christopher Columbus, allegedly Christopher Columbus, and his other colleagues with him. What's his name? Alfonso Nino de Moor, who was a navigator for Christopher Columbus. When they allegedly discovered America, it was a notion that America was Atlantis that was talked about by Socrates. And Socrates said in Atlantis you had 7 god kings who was ruled by one, and they ruled from underground. And we know in America we have underground cities all over this country that interconnects from New Orleans to Canada, East Coast to the West Coast. Thousands and probably millions of miles of underground tunnels and railroads and cities. So Socrates said that in Atlantis there are 7 god kings. And he wrote this in 2500 BC, which is approximately 5,000 years ago. So when the black man culture emerged in the early 1930s, that the black man was God, I think that's our ancient culture. And then that culture was neutralized after Elijah Muhammad died, when Minister Farrakhan and Warideen Muhammad abandoned the culture and embraced the Arab Islam, the Sunni Islam of the East, was led to absolutely nothing. You see what's happening in Palestine following the Arab man. He's getting his women and children destroyed with his foolishness. He's not reacting appropriately. Every time they make a move, they end up losing more people and more land. So following them, you're going to end up losing everything, just like what happened. He followed the white Arabs and the white Christians. He followed Jim Jones, and then the black community lost all of the gains that we had acquired under the leadership of Elijah Muhammad. But we have to figure out what our actual real culture is, and we could use processing, mathematics, advanced mathematics to identify substances. Just like in chemical engineering, chemistry, biology, they say you have certain parts per million. If you introduce 10 parts per million, that might, if depending on how powerful the chemical is, that could be a devastating effect. 100 parts per million of poison, like how they used it in Supreme Wisdom. They say if they introduce a certain amount of salt into your food, how many years would it take for you to die? See what I'm saying? If they just introduce a small amount of extra salt into your food per year, how many years would it take for you to die? Based on that supreme wisdom of the Nation of Islam. The problem books. That's our original culture. That's our true culture, based on logic, mathematics, reasoning, instantaneously discovering a problem and finding a solution to the problem. And then when you look at how ideas are introduced, they are introduced via movies, television, books, and then those ideas are then shared amongst the people. They used to have these ghetto hoochie books, and then these ghetto hoochie books would encourage the women to behave. Even Tyler Perry movies. You see the Tyler Perry movies, a drag queen running around. Now you see a whole bunch of black men, drag queens, running around. You know, you just see the idea introduced subtly. And when they had this experiment in the 1960s called MK Ultra, they said they were able to brainwash people by giving them psychedelic drugs and playing repeated messages. How is that any different than a person drunk and high listening to the same song over and over, getting brainwashed? And that idea that was introduced to you via these looped, repeated messages become part of the culture. And then those ideas are then become desired and encouraged. You have the whole thing about rewards, positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, to determine the behavior of the people. People usually do what they get positive reinforcement to do, and they are discouraged to behave a certain way based on negative reinforcement. But those ideas that is being reinforced positively are possibly the ideas that was introduced via are foreign ideas that's not originally part of the culture. And because that culture is being promoted and perpetuated and rewarded, then that becomes the prevailing aspect of the culture, and it could replace your culture. It's like how when the people came to America and forced people by a sword and a gun to become Christians and to enslave the people and force that on them, then that wasn't like it was positive reinforcement. It was either do that or die or suffer punishment. It was coercion. That's what that was. That wasn't like influence. And I'm talking about the reason I'm using these different aspects of power, influence, and coercion, because they are discussed in this book called The Blueprint for Black Power by Dr. Amos Wilson. So they came and forced the culture on you with the sword and the gun. Now they use a more subtle way. They use influence and they interject these ideas into your culture. And then when you embrace these ideas could be detrimental to you. And these ideas can actually cause you to these ideas can actually cause your destruction, cause you to lose all your property, cause you to go into debt, cause you to commit self-extermination by not having children, cause you to be exploited by foreign domination. And then another thing I thought about earlier, we need to practice political disobedience. Political disobedience is similar to civil disobedience. When the 1960s, SNCC under Stokely Carmichael, a dude from Trinidad, and other people like SNCC, Student Nonviolence Coalition, they practice civil disobedience by going into these segregated supermarkets and restaurants and sitting in, and then they suffer the consequences of that. But that led to political change. Political disobedience has different methods, but one of the methods I'm talking about is using our vote as a tool of power by withholding our vote or voting for the opposition to punish the people who has been taking advantage of the black vote, which were the Democrats. The Democrats have no policy for you. They have no plan for you. They just say you're going to vote for them because of some intrinsic loyalty that you have, like you owe them something. But in reality, we don't owe them anything. They say we owe the Democrat Party because they signed the Civil Rights Act, desegregation, integration, minorities. But we look at the results of that. That did not improve the black people. We lost more resources after the signing of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 than before the Civil Rights Act. So, and then white women are the biggest beneficiaries, and Hispanics and all these East Indians, Africans. So if anybody owe the Democrats, it should be those groups. It should not be the so-called black people. So we should practice political disobedience to bend the world, this country, to the will of the people, the black people. And the Democrat Party must be punished for their negligence. What do this guy Claude Anderson? Their benign neglect of the people who they depend on. How you gonna bite the hand that feeds you? But yeah, that's about it though. That's what I'm gonna talk about. Hey, go grab one of my books off the website enigma.com, and or get one of my book bundle packages. You get 12 ebooks for $30. That's about it.